Okay, welcome to this interview, which is realized in the framework of the INCrEAsE European project. The INCrEAsE European project is funded by the Erasmus Plus program, Strategic Partnership for Adult Education. The project aims to develop intercultural communication of adult educators and adult learners working and studying in formal and non-formal educational settings in order to help them to overcome the challenges arising from their everyday activity with multicultural and multilingual context. Today, for this interview, we have an adult learner. He's Joel. And first of all, I would like to thank him for his availability to be interviewed by me, to be my sacrificial victim for this interview. And I will immediately leave the floor to Joel, and I ask him to present himself, name, status, nationality, and job. Please, Joel.
Thank you, Antonio. My name is Joel Elkinan Theoway. I'm a lawyer in Liberia, and I work for the National Public Health Institute of Liberia as a legal counsel. I've been a lawyer for 6 years, and I talk to acquire additional skills to diversify in project management, especially European project management. So I pursued the International Master at Pixels to be able to acquire in-depth training in European project planning and management. And at that time, basically, I was an adult learner because it had been a long time since I was in school.
Okay, thanks for this. You already replied to the second question because it was when and how you enter in contact with a new culture as adult learner and in what context you have been interacting with adult educators. Was the experience in Florence the only one you had in a multicultural context and you had as adult learner?
No, that was the second experience in a multicultural context. The first experience was between 2015 to 2016 in Hamburg, Germany, when I participated in a fellowship in the law of the sea, especially dispute settlement under the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea. And that fellowship was it took place in Hamburg, Germany, at the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea. So originally the fellows were 7 fellows, but then during the course of the training, we had a greater academy. We called it the International Fellowship for the Law of the Sea. It brought together more than 45 nationals from different countries across the world, America, Brazil, from the different continents. And the 45 of us, we really enjoy good time together. We share culture, we eat, we share food, we share experiences, especially in the law, the different contexts and the different application of laws, the different kinds of laws, and the different jurisdiction in the various countries that were gathered at the International Fellowship of the Law of the Sea. So it was an awesome moment. Today, we still have that connection. We have a WhatsApp group that we share experience all the time. We even share experience when it comes to doing our own work at home, trying to get perspectives from different countries. So that was my first experience, and the PISA experience was my second experience, which I really also admire.
So I'm not wrong if I say that you are kind of expert in dealing with interculturality.
Well, to a large extent, because I've had 2 experiences now, and so it would not be a strange thing. It's not a strange thing to me to engage with a group that is multicultural.
Okay, let's focus on your experiences in dealing with interculturality. Do you have any memory, any good memory to share, any experience, any lesson that you learned during those experiences?
Well, good experience. It's always good to learn about the culture of another country or of another society. And most times when you are together with people from different nationality, they get to always explain, oh, in my country we do this, and you always come up with yours and say, oh, we do it this way in our country. And what it brings is that it takes away prejudice, it takes away bad perceptions, and it makes you to understand more why people do things the way they do. In my, I'll give you two instances, one from my first experience in Germany and one from my experience at Pixels. So my German experience was, so I went to class one day and I was, Joel, how you doing? I said, I'm not well, I have malaria. So after a couple of months, she said, Joel, you remember when I asked you the other day, you said you have malaria? I said, yes. She said, I was afraid. So if you have noticed, I drew far from you. I said, what? She said, in Georgia, if you have malaria, you will die. I said, wow, in Liberia, we live with malaria. Malaria doesn't do much. You can have malaria, you do it whatever you want to do. She said, no, in Georgia, I can remember the last time in Georgia, our foreign minister traveled to Africa, and when he returned to Georgia, he had malaria. He quarantined him and the call for a nationwide fast and prayer. I said, Jesus, for malaria? She said, yes. I said, no. In Liberia, we live with malaria. Malaria, we can even live with 2, 3. That was the first experience. So it was like things that we live with in our society. Some people don't really, they don't have the resistance towards it. They don't have the immunity towards it. So my second experience in Florence was, you know, that there's something they call blowing your nose. You got snuff in your nose and you want to blow it. So I realized that in Europe, it was a normal thing for you to just pick up a napkin and blow your nose in the presence of anybody. So for a while, I couldn't just get used to it, because in Liberia, if you want to blow your nose, you got to leave the gathering and go in bathroom and blow your nose, clean it, everything. So if you blow your nose in the public, it'd be like you are so nasty. So for the first day, you know, I sat by one of my colleagues in the classroom, and she blew her nose like after every 2 minutes. So I was so uncomfortable. Then later I got used to cultural experience.
Those are cultural differences. This is interculturality and getting used with something you are not familiar with. Those are memories. Did you do you want to speak about the difficulties you met about, for example, language, culture, social aspects, something you were really in difficult with?
Well, in terms of language, since the courses were always taught in English, so it did not really present much of a problem, except that I realized that most of the instructors, or all of the instructors, were not native English speaker, so they had to adjust, you know, if you speak English as a second language, the way you pronounce, the way you perceive the meaning of certain words will be quite different from a native English speaker. So I saw that some of the instructors had challenges in that respect, but on the average, on the overall, they were good. They were able to put the lesson across, and the students were able to understand. I also saw that there were people who were well versed in their areas. They have many years of experience. That is something that we in our own country do not have. Instructors will just get a master's degree and go and teach. They do not have writing. They do not have that scholarly writing. They will not publish articles. They will not write books. But in a European setting, for you to be an instructor, you must have many years of experience. You must have scholarly writings, published articles, reading books. So it makes you well experienced to be able to relate, to be able to pass knowledge across from your own natural understanding instead of just reading a few pages in a book and coming to class like what they would do here. So I really admire that. And I realized also that they do have patience, real patience with the student, and the entire goal is to ensure that student learn. I would say that in the African circle, instructors take glory when the students fail. I mean, they feel like oh, I'm a tough instructor if the students fail. But in the European setting, no, it's not the case. The instructors will stand by you, ensure that you understand the matter, and they do not focus entirely. They do not focus the evaluation entirely on the test that they gave. They focus the evaluation on the material, on the understanding of the student of the material. Because sometimes people got test phobia. Sometimes people got different ways of exhibiting how they understood a particular material that was taught. So, but yeah, in Liberia and most of Africa, the instructors will be happy if many students fail. Yeah,
Okay.
and so yeah.
And you also mentioned two different countries. You have been to Italy and Germany. Were
Yeah.
the host countries prepared to this interculturality, and are there any differences between the two countries in terms of, being prepared to interculturality?
So my experience in Germany is that I think Germany, the people are very receptive, and but in terms of opening up, embracing, they do not frown. They speak to you. If you greet them, they greet you, but they are more conserved. They are more by themselves. They do not accommodate you in terms of trying to be friends with you. And they are very quiet kind of people. So the communities are very quiet. Even in the center, in the city center, the place will be very quiet. In Italy, people are lively people. And so if you live in the city center, you always
Okay,
yeah.
we
So
just
was that
missed part of your reply. So we stopped just at the idea of Italian as lively people. If you want to start again from that point.
yeah. So Italian are lively people. You see them celebrating all the time. And what I realize in Italy is that I, they are more receptive in the streets of Italy, especially Florence. The last many a time when I talk to people, I say you have five out of 10% on the streets of Italy are tourists, especially in Florence. A lot of people come from different countries to go and see the beautiful scenery of Italy, topography, and all that kind of things. So where I was in Germany compared to where I was in Florence, there were more tourists in Florence than in Germany. And there were more beautiful places to see in Florence than where I was in Germany. But when it comes to the reception of people, it doesn't appear on the faces of the Germans that they now want you around. You can see from the faces that they love people, but it's just that it was not part of the culture to just receive people in their life as friends, as the Italian would do.
Okay.
And besides that, um, there were more Germans, more Italians that try to speak English than Germans. Yeah,
Okay.
where we were. Yeah.
Good to know we are quite prepared to interculturality. The last question. Do you have any suggestion to learners who are going to deal with interculturality, with multicultural contexts? What would be the suggestion you would give to them?
So my suggestion to learners who want to study in a multicultural, intercultural environment would be to be able to though, to be able to adjust to new culture. For instance, a situation I explained to you, you must be ready at any time to have a cultural shock and not have an outburst. So if it was in Africa, somebody else from Africa or somewhere else where they see it as a taboo to sneeze in the public, to be like very shocked and be very dismissive of their colleague by them. Say, no, you don't do this. You want to do that? You want to sneeze? Or you want to blow your nose? Go in the bathroom. We in a classroom, man. Kind of thing. So you need to understand. You need to build that resilience. You need to be ready to have a cultural shock. Like the last time, a classmate was telling us about his own cultural shock in Portugal, where he saw that a friend of mine, just to tell him goodbye, came and kissed him on the lip. He said it was a big cultural shock. But if it wasn't somebody who was ready for a cultural shock, he was just shoving away and said, no, you don't do this. But then he just froze and allowed the kiss to go on. And when the guy left him, he went home pondering about it. Wanted to call somebody else and ask the person, so why did the guy kiss me? He said, no, it's a normal thing here for even guys to kiss people goodbye. So you always have to be prepared for that cultural shock. And when you experience it, you should have a lot of tolerance to be able to accept it.
Perfect. Thanks for those suggestions.
And another experience was in classroom, you hear this kind of F-U-C-K. F-U-C-K. I don't want to pronounce it because it's not something I would normally pronounce yet. But I mean, it was like a song. It wasn't any problem. I mean, a student even told the instructor, what the fuck? And it was like nothing. You don't do that here. You don't do that in the African culture. It's an insult. So to the extent that student, everybody started to call him WTF. What the fuck again? It was like a song. So you really need to build that tolerance to accept other culture. They would be shocking to you, but you need to say, I have left my society. I'm in the midst of people with different backgrounds. I need to build the tolerance to be able to accept them just as they are. Because if I don't accept them as they are, it will have an impact on what I do, and it will have an impact, it will derail what I came for.
Okay, tolerance, cultural shock, it means be open-minded, I think.
Open-minded.
You should be open-minded while you are dealing with multiculturality. Thanks for your feedbacks, thanks for your suggestions, and for these nice memories that you have about your previous experience, and thanks for being involved in this interview.